Welcome to the Kenoi Church Podcast. We're glad that you're interested in connecting through this teaching time. If you'd like to connect further, feel free to reach out to us through our website, kenoichurch.org. For now, enjoy this teaching from Kenoi Church, where our mission is to lead people into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ.
Good morning. We are currently in this series called Faithful Wholeness, and we are talking about what it looks like for us to try and be healthy, faithfully whole, which is, as I talked about last week, not one of my strength areas. All right, so I'm speaking out of my own weakness. I'm not the guy who is really great at taking breaks or maintaining great boundaries or doing a lot of great self-care. Those aren't my strength points. So a lot of these sermons are speaking to me a lot. So I just want to put that out there. Today we are talking about the pruned life. We're talking about this idea of pruning. And so if you've ever done gardening or you like flowering bushes, then you probably know a little bit about pruning. You might know something strange about plants, that sometimes the way you make them grow is that you cut them back. When we bought our house, we inherited a number of rose bushes. And when we inherited those rose bushes, we knew nothing about rose bushes. But one thing that we learned pretty quickly was that if you want them to be healthy or grow big, nice roses, you have to cut them back. And you cut them back pretty hard, actually. My grandfather, he was sort of a master at growing raspberries. And some of you guys might know my grandfather or knew my grandfather, and you would know that he loved raspberries. He had tons of raspberry bushes. And one of the things about raspberry bushes is that you have to cut them back to just stalks every year, which is pretty crazy. But if you want them to be healthy and give lots of fruit, you cut these guys back to just being stalks, which is, again, crazy. Now, Pastor Dave actually has a pretty interesting story to share about pruning, and he's going to come up and share that, illustrate what we're talking about this morning to sort of get us started. So, Pastor Dave, if you want to come up and share that, I have the pictures right there for you.
Hey, there we go. So I had a landscaping challenge. Our house had these huge bushes that were kind of growing uncontrolled. You'll kind of see them there. That's the side of the house. That's after I removed. That's all the stuff that I removed. And what was really interesting is that when we bought this house, it had just kind of been left alone and kind of left uncared for. And I started pruning with a small set of clippers, you know, like the clippy kind. And then that wasn't doing it, so I brought out a folding tree saw. And then that wasn't doing it. Then I eventually brought out a chainsaw and just started like hacking away as these limbs got bigger and thicker and more unmanageable. And after hours of hacking away, I was amazed at how thick that it had grown. But I was even more amazed that there had been a tree back there the entire time that I didn't know was there. And it was so odd because we're just like, somebody planted this tree, forgot all about it, and the overgrowth just choked it out. Like, it wasn't even visible anymore. And only after I removed all of the surrounding pieces and all of the overgrowth could we see the tree and it could grow to its full potential. It reminded me of, at a previous house, we had these beautiful wisteria bushes. I don't know, who's familiar with wisteria? Anybody? All right. So if you know, you know. Wisteria, it is beautiful. It's up there with lilac, which is my favorite, just because it is fragrant, it is beautiful, it has these purple blossoms. It is also super invasive. It was really a problem. We had these beautiful blossoms, and I said, oh, look at my wisteria, guys. It's so beautiful. And they're all just like, well, you're going to cut it back, right? I'm just like, yeah, sure, I'll get to it, you know. And they're like, you know that it's invasive, right? And I'm like, yeah, it's not a problem. I'm going to get to it. And so what happens is, this is also wisteria. The roots become almost like thick braided rope but it's wood. So imagine wrapping wooden rope around your house. And then imagine this wooden rope growing up the side of your house and pulling the downspout off the brick, which is what happened in our case. And, I didn't cut it back. I didn't trim it. And it started invading. It literally started taking over. So what I realized was that I enjoyed the wisteria, but I didn't manage it. I didn't cut it back. I didn't have the discipline to do what I needed to do to make sure that it didn't take over. So basically, it was managing me instead of me managing it. And I thought our lives are filled with really good things that we enjoy. I mean, I look at my calendar and I'm going from this to this to this to this, and it's all good stuff. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't do it. But my problem is we have these good opportunities, these good intentions, but sometimes they're just good. There's nothing great about them. There's nothing that is at the center of who we are as a person. I keep on asking myself, where can I be the most me? Where can I surround myself with people that are just like, you don't have to be anything, you don't have to do anything, you can just be yourself. Because those are the opportunities, the places, and the people that I think we all need to surround ourselves with. And sometimes we need to prune these good things that we're doing so that we make room and have margin for self-reflection and rest, and we have some space for the great things, the things that God wants for us, the things that really stir our hearts and our souls. Because, again, the only way to make room for the great is to get rid of the good. So, ponder that as Nick comes and shares.
If you don't prune, plants get overgrown. Leaves get tangled, the branches go wild. And the big thing here is, which was what Dave is pointing out, is the plant spends its energy trying to keep everything alive, doesn't it? The plant spends its energy trying to keep everything alive, and so the fruit suffers. Or the flowers suffer, if it's a rose bush, right? Pruning looks harsh. Dave got a chainsaw out, right? Pruning looks harsh. When I cut raspberry bushes back to just stalks, it feels like I might be killing them. All right? My raspberry bushes at home right now, they are so big I couldn't put my arms around them. They're so high I can't reach over top of them. That's how big they are right now. So when I cut them back to just stalks, it's going to feel like I'm killing those things. All right? But pruning is a gift. If I want those things to give raspberries next year, if I want the growth to come back, if I want them to grow that big again, I'm going to have to prune them because it's going to help them channel energy into what matters most. And the thing is, pruning, when God does it with us, it works the same way. Okay? So I want to look at John chapter 15 this morning. Verses 1 and 2 is where we're going to start. I'll throw it on the screen. Here's what Jesus says. He says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it'll be even more fruitful. When we read this passage, admittedly, we tend to focus on the branches that get cut off. And I don't want to stand up here and pretend like it doesn't say that, all right? I don't want to pretend like it doesn't say that God cuts off branches that don't bear fruit. Most of the sermons that I've heard in my lifetime when we come to this passage, those sermons tend to focus on that God cuts off branches, right? That's what they tend to focus on. Make sure you're bearing fruit. If you don't bear fruit, snip, snip, we cut the branch off, right? That's most of the sermons I've heard. Make sure you're bearing good fruit, okay? Maybe that's your experience too. But here's the thing. That's not all the passage says, is it? Is it? Okay, all right. Jesus also talks about pruning. Here's what he says, okay? Put it on the screen for you. He says, God is the gardener. We are the branches. Fruitfulness is the goal, and pruning is part of the process. Okay? Notice something about this passage. If you guys opened it up, notice something. God prunes healthy branches. Not because they're bad, not because they're useless, but because they're meant for more. He prunes them so that they'll be more fruitful. It's the same reason that I cut back my rose bushes every year. I want the flowers to be bigger, right? I want the flowers to be brighter. I want the flowers to be more abundant. So I prune back the bush. And if there's a dead branch, and sometimes there are a dead branch or two, I will cut it off and remove it. Because I don't want the bush to spend time putting energy and time into that dead branch. Do I? No. So I snip it off, I toss it in the woods, and then I prune the rest of the thing back. It's the exact same principle with us. Pruning is about purpose. It's not about punishment. And if you're feeling the sting of something that's being cut away in your life right now, it might be a job change, it could be a friendship or a relationship that's ending. Maybe it's a role that you've stepped out of or a role that's changing. It can be really easy for us to think, what did I do wrong? Where did I turn wrong? God, why are you punishing me? Why is God upset with me? Right? That's often our go-to when the pruning happens. But what if we start thinking about pruning differently? What if pruning isn't punishment? What if pruning is preparation? Think about it this way. If you've ever had a season where God removed something in your life, maybe it's a commitment, maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's a habit. I want you to think about this for a second. What was it like after that was gone? I know this isn't a 100% guarantee, but often there's space in your life. Space opened up, and maybe there was space for something more that was already in your life to blossom into something better. Or maybe there was finally space in your life for God to bring something better into your life. Again, I'm not saying that's a 100% guarantee. I'm not saying you reflect back on your life and God pruned something out of it, and 100% of the time, suddenly God brought something amazing into your life. I'm not saying that. I'm saying this is where you need to do the self-reflection to look at your life and go, all right, was there a time in my life that I can look back on where God did some pruning work in my life? And I'm reflecting on that time, and I go, okay, God pruned something, there was space. And I can look at that now with hindsight and go, oh, something that was already there finally blossomed into something better. I see how now, I can see with hindsight how God used that space to grow something. Or I can now with hindsight look and go, oh, I see how God pruned and made space in my life, and it opened a door to something new. Again, it doesn't always happen. But sometimes when we use self-reflection, which is a gift, we can look back and go, I can see what God was doing. We can ask the question, am I ending this thing in my life? Or is God ending this thing? Is this a me thing that I'm doing, or is it a God thing that God is doing? And then be truthful in asking the question, what is God doing with the space in my life that is now opened up? Letting go of the things in our life takes faith to let go of. We like the things in our life most of the time. The things we've held on to, the things we've gotten used to, we're comfortable with them. We like comfort, all right? We like the familiar. Letting go of things is hard. The truth is, we like what's familiar. Even if it's not healthy, we like what's comfortable, okay? Letting go takes faith. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 says this. Let's throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. Let's run with perseverance the race that's marked out for us. That's a verse that many of us are familiar with. There are two categories of things that we have to let go of, okay? The first one is sin, okay? This is the stuff that trips us up, right? This is right here in this passage, right here in this verse, right? What are those things, right? Easy examples. Anger, pride, greed, jealousy, gossip, right? These are things that we can just, look, this trips us up. Every day we get caught up in these things. I'm driving down the road. I get caught up in 3 or 4 of those things right away. Nicer car, somebody cut me off, right? Nope, there's 3 or 4 of those things just trip me up. I got to throw off those things. They get in the way of my race, right? All right. We should throw those things off. Okay. There's another category, though, of things that weigh us down, that slow us down. And these are the things that are not necessarily wrong. They're just not right for this season of life. Okay? Things that aren't necessarily wrong, they're just not right for this season of life. And pruning often happens in that second category. Things that aren't necessarily wrong, they're just not right for this season of life. Okay? Things that were once good, but they aren't helping you move forward right now. That makes sense? Okay. We all probably have some of those in our life, right? All right. So what are some biblical examples of pruning? All right. This isn't just a philosophical conversation that we're having this morning. Biblical examples of pruning. Abraham. We all know Abraham. Father Abraham, many sons, Father Abraham, right? We know Father Abraham. Okay. Abraham, Genesis chapter 12. That's where we meet him. Now, his story extends for another 12 chapters in Genesis. But Genesis chapter 12, verse 1, that's where we meet Abraham. And what's the very first thing that God says to him? He says, leave your country, leave your people, and your father's household. Is any of that bad stuff? Your father, your country, your people? No. None of that's bad stuff. In fact, those are good things. Things that gave him stability, structure, security. He built a life with those things. Your father's household, your country, your people. And yet God calls him out of those things. That's a major pruning. Leave those things behind and go to a land that I'm showing you. And in fact, if Abraham hadn't done that, we wouldn't have the nation that God builds through him. That's a huge pruning. Okay? Are they bad things? No. Just not right for the season that God was about to call Abraham into. Huge. Okay, what's another one? How about Gideon? Gideon's found in Judges chapter 7. What do we know about Gideon? Well, Gideon's a warrior. He's a warrior. Yeah, we'll call him a warrior. He's a warrior. And he has an army of about 32,000 men. He's about to go into battle. And what does God do? God says, it's too many men. We're gonna whittle that down a bit. All right? So what does he do? He says, send away 22,000 of those men. Holy moly. All right. So we go from 32,000 down to 10,000 warriors. All right. Gideon's like, all right. 32,000 to 10,000. Now let's go into battle. And God's like, wait a second. Let's send away almost all of them. Now we're down to 300. Okay? So from 32,000 to 300 men. That's a huge pruning. But why? Well, then when he goes into battle and wins, who's going to get the glory? God. It's not going to be Gideon's strategic mind. It's not going to be mighty warriors. It's not going to be overwhelming numbers. God's power is going to get all the glory for the win with Gideon, right? Major pruning happening here. Are you with me? Okay. All right. The pruning doesn't feel good. It might even feel frightening. but pruning is happening. Let's go to a familiar story, one that we've been referencing every single week. Let's look at this one about Jesus. Mark 1:38. We've been talking about this story every single week. Jesus and the crowds, right? The crowds keep coming. Well, they keep coming. I keep saying they keep coming because we keep coming back to the story. Let me rephrase that. The crowds come to Jesus and they want more of him. And Jesus responds and says, let's go somewhere else in order to stay with his mission, right? So he doesn't give in to the crowds. He goes elsewhere. Even when his disciples come and say, oh, the crowds, you got to go give them what they want, right? He's like, no, that's not why I was called. And they go somewhere else, right? This is a step in pruning because he doesn't give in to the overwhelming urge to just do what the crowds want. That would increase his popularity. He would do whatever they want and they would love him that much more. And instead he stays with the mission, right? Okay, this isn't just a pruning for Jesus, but this provides a real life example for the disciples. I want you to think about that for a moment, okay? Because a lot of times when we are being pruned in life, we think about how painful and hard and uncomfortable it is for us. And it is. I don't want to take that away. But have you ever considered the fact that the pruning in your life both serves to prepare you for God's work, but it also serves to be an example and a light to those around you as they watch you go through the process of pruning and growing and bearing new fruit. That's exactly what's happening to the disciples as Jesus goes through this. Why does God prune? That's got to be a question that we ask of ourselves. It's got to be a question that we ask. God, I'm a little annoyed. Feel like you've been doing a whole lot of pruning of my life, and I could just use maybe a little bit of growth, maybe a little bit of blooming, right? Pretty flower time over here. No more pruning, right? Anybody feel that way sometimes? Okay, all right. Why does God prune? Well, if you're a gardener, if you have some flower bushes at home, you probably already know this. But maybe it helps us to hear it out loud. God prunes to focus our attention. We have limited time, we have limited energy, and we have limited attention. Okay? Without pruning, we are going to try to keep every branch alive. And sometimes that means the fruit will suffer. I know that at my house, some of my rose bushes have a dead branch here and there on it. Okay? I know that means that when the rain comes down or there's some sort of food that I might sprinkle on the rose bushes, they're still going to put energy into those branches. Even if they look dead, they're still trying to feed it. They're still trying to care for it. And until I remove that dead branch, that's going to keep happening. And that means that energy and food and water is not being fully devoted to the blooms that they need to be devoted to. In our lives, we all have some of those dead branches as well. So when the pruning happens, it removes some of that. And it doesn't feel good. It's hard. It feels harsh. But it allows us to focus our time, our energy, and attention to where it needs to be. Okay. Another reason might be preparation. God has to prepare us for the next season. It's time in the season for me to go down to the raspberry bushes and fight those thorns and cut them back to just stalks. Because the season is coming where it's going to get cold. And then the next season is coming where it's going to be massive growth, right? And get ready for the fruit. There's a season coming where it's time for a hard cutback. I've got to clear space in that part of the garden for there to be growth next year, don't I? If I don't, there will be no room for growth, will there? All right. Sometimes our lives are like that. Dave talked about, you looked at a schedule, right? And it's full of stuff. It's good stuff, but maybe it's not great stuff. Our lives are like those raspberry bushes sometimes. Like my garden, it's full. A whole bunch of brambles and briars, and it's time to go fight them. It's time to go cut them back. And God can see our lives. The spiritual portion of our lives sometimes need cut back to stalks to make room to prepare for the season of growth that's coming. Maybe that's the time in your life that it is right now. That's hard, right? I can feel like a bit of a punch right in the gut. All right. Third reason might be protection. To protect us from something that's going to drain us. That dead branch is just hanging there. It's just draining away the nutrients that we need. Not every opportunity is from God. Sometimes we see an opportunity and it looks good, and so we sign up. We go all in. And as we talked about last week, we don't want to be disappointments. We want to be dependable. We want to be folks that, man, if we sign up for something, you can count on us. We're not going to give up. We're hard workers. We're all in. We're going to stay in. We committed to this thing, right? All right. But when do you say, that really was my decision, not a God thing? It doesn't fit with my gifting. I tried my hand at this, but what I've learned from trying my hand at this was that it doesn't fit with my calling, my mission, my gifting. It's time for me to let go and trust that somebody else is going to stand in. Maybe the pruning is happening out of protection. Sometimes distractions are disguised as open doors. Now, I said these things: focus, preparation, protection, and I hope you heard them as you kind of processing those things as individuals. But we also have to process those things as community, right? Because God doesn't just prune us as individuals, He also prunes us as community too. And so we think through our church, our community, our church community. Is God doing pruning here at Kenoi? And if He is doing a pruning work at Kenoi, why? Are we willing to ask that question? Are we willing to grapple with that? Because I realize that might be a little uncomfortable. And I realize that might feel heavy to hold in our hands, because we might not come to an answer. Is it to narrow our focus a bit? We have limited time and energy, and so we need to focus in on something that we haven't been focusing in on. And so God has been doing some pruning to help us focus in on something that we've been missing. Is it out of preparation? God has been doing a pruning work to prepare us for something that's coming. God's been making space so that we are ready for something. And if that's the case, are we doing the work we need to do to be prepared for the thing that's coming? Or is it out of protection? That there's been something happening, going on here that we need to be protected from. And so there's a snipping that's happening in order to make it safer. Are we willing to grapple with that as a community? What, in all practical terms, might pruning look like for you? I want this to be a practical thing, and so I have a couple of practical things here at the end that I want you to think about. What could pruning look like? Pruning could be ending a commitment that no longer aligns with your calling. I think we've said that already. It could be stepping back from a relationship that is crossing your boundaries or is increasingly unhealthy. We touched on that last week. Pruning could be saying no to a good thing so that you can say yes to a God thing. We talked about that last week, so continuation of that. Pruning could be removing a habit that's not necessarily a sinful thing, but it's stealing your time or your peace. It might be letting go of a role where you've been over-functioning. It might be letting go of an unhealthy need to please everyone. You can't. I don't know if you know that. Just bust out the secret right here, right now. You can't please everyone, so please stop trying. All right. It might be letting go of a pace of life that's crowding out prayer and rest. Okay. This could be what pruning looks like for you. But you know what it's a call to? It's a call for you to trust the gardener. And I need to say this as I say that. It's a call for you to trust the gardener. So some of you need to hear that, all right? Some of you need to hear me say, trust the gardener. Others of you need to hear me say this. You aren't the gardener. I don't know which one you are this morning, okay? So, trust the gardener. You aren't the gardener, okay? And I get the hard part is knowing that pruning feels like loss. I get that. It's because you're not the gardener. You don't have the control, okay? You don't have the control. You're the one being snipped, okay? So I get that's the hard part here. But that's where the trust comes in. That's where the faith comes in. Trust the gardener. Trust the process, okay? God is not careless with his clippers, all right? He's not. He knows exactly what he's cutting and why. Look at this passage from Psalm 139. It says, your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. The God who prunes you knows you. The God who prunes you knows you. He's always known you. His cuts are precise and purposeful, and they're always for your good. Now, I started this whole thing with John 15, and I gave you 2 verses. But that's not the whole thing. Can I just give you a little bit more out of John 15 as we come to a close? It says this, remain in me as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine and you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Here's the key. Pruning doesn't bear fruit by itself. Abiding does. Remaining in him does. Pruning creates the space, but abiding in him, remaining in him, that's the key, okay? It's not enough to cut things out. You have to stay connected to the vine. All right, hear me. It's not enough to cut things out. It's not enough to simply do the pruning. You have to stay connected to the vine because what fills the space matters. If we make the space, God's got to fill the space. So here's just some action steps this week, 3 of them, okay? 1, ask God what needs to be pruned. That's so simple, right? Just open-handedly we come before God and we say, God, in my life, what needs to be pruned? What is hindering the fruit that you want to produce in me? Simple, right? I wish my raspberry bushes would do that. That would be so nice if they just asked me. Number 2, release one thing. If you get an answer from God, if you go before God and you say, what's hindering the fruit? And you get an answer, release it. Holy moly. How many of you have ever come and had a conversation with me and been like, I wish God would talk to me? And then you go and say a prayer and then you don't do the thing? That's the silliest thing ever. I've had so many conversations with people in this community who wish God would speak to them. If you go and you pray, God, what's hindering my growth? And then you feel like the Holy Spirit moves in you, gives you a picture, gives you a tug of the heart, answers you in some way, shape, or form, and then you don't release the thing. I'm going to tell you right now, you're your own worst enemy. You're standing in your own way. Get out of your own way. Release the thing. Stop holding on to the thing. Are you with me on this? Okay. But can I just say this now? The only way you're going to get there is if you go and do step one. You have to go and pray the prayer. You know, I've been listening to these podcasts recently. There's a series of podcasts about revival. All right? Just over and over and over. And you know, the thing that I keep hearing from these places that are experiencing revival is desperation. People are desperate in their prayers for it. Desperate in their worship for it. Desperate in seeking God. Are we? Do we really want it? Do we really want God to answer the questions that we have, the growth that we want? I mean, we say it, but do we? Are we serious about it? Are we desperate? I don't think we're desperate. That's the honest truth. I don't get that sense. We're not desperate. Maybe that's the real problem. So when I say ask God what needs to be pruned, you're never going to take step 2, release one thing, if you don't start with step 1 and ask what needs to be pruned. And you probably won't hear the answer if we're not on our face actually asking the question again and again and again. God, what needs to be pruned? God, what's standing in the way of my growth? God, what's inhibiting fruit in my life? God, what needs to change? If we're not on our face asking the question over and over and over, we're not going to get an answer. And if you don't get the answer, you're not going to know what needs to be released. It doesn't get simpler than that. We're not going to hear the word if we're not desperate on our face asking the question. Step 1, step 2. Step 3, abide daily. Be in him daily. Go to God daily. Spend intentional time with God every day, letting him fill the space. If you are so lucky that you are desperately seeking him and he answers you to give you the thing that you need to release, and the pruned life happens and it opens up space in your life, and you now have open space in your life, then abide in him so that you're not filling the open space with stuff that doesn't matter. Fill it with him, the stuff that does matter. Let the Holy Spirit guide that space to be filled. Not another activity, not another schedule filler. Let the Spirit fill that thing. So that fruit can be born from your life. Abide in him. If we keep doing the same thing that we've always done, we get what we've always got. Amen? Then things have to change. We have to change. If you came in here today, if you came in here 40 years ago and you thought you had it all together, and you thought that you were not the problem, and you thought that you didn't have to change anything, sorry. That's not the way God works. It is you. You do have to make the adjustment. You do have to make the course correction, and so do I. Every single one of us. That is what it means to be pruned. That is what it means to open up space in our life, and that is what it means to abide in him. And I get it. Some of you are in a pruning season right now, and some of you are going into the season where you're going to get cut back to a stalk. And some of you might be so lucky to be in a season where you are blooming. God bless you. I hope that we all get to smell the roses. But guess what? It's different for everybody. And that's what makes a community a community. That is what makes it so important that we get to share in each other's lives. We get to encourage each other. That we have cross-pollination with each other. We need that from each other. And so if this is a place where you come for an hour on a Sunday morning and you jet out of here and there's no other connection for the rest of the week, we aren't doing our job. We are not being a community. Then this is just a convenience store for you to get your fix and get out of here. It doesn't work. It's not the church. It's not what anybody envisioned from 2,000 years ago. We got to do better, or this thing is going to go kaput. So we can do better. We should do better. The good news about pruning is this. If you are being pruned, if you sense that that is where you are at, God sees future in you. God sees life in you because God prunes things that are living. God prunes things that he wants to grow fruit. So as much as it might feel uncomfortable, as much as it might even feel like it hurts, it means there's life in you. It means there's life ahead. It means there's fruit ahead. It means that he is getting you ready for something. And I don't know what that is, but I promise you that if you get on your face and you talk with him, he's going to begin opening that up to you.
Hi, this is Pastor Nick. Thanks for listening. I hope something that you heard today was very helpful. If you want to connect with us further, feel free to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, or our website, KanoiChurch.org. Sure, I'm glad we're in this together.